Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Danny and Stan's Football Weekend, presented by Park University. And what a football weekend it was. Last week, it was up to the Kansas City Chiefs to rescue the entire weekend, and that they did, despite a troubling performance. Well, the troubling performance against the Lions turned into a loss this time around, and maybe in the most unlikely fashion that you would have seen. It would have seemed that the Chiefs would need to be outscored in any game in order to lose a game. Technically, of course, to lose a game, you have to be outscored, but I meant more like 34-31. Not in this case. The Chiefs were shut down to 13 points, the lowest in the Patrick Mahomes era. It concluded a weekend that wasn't successful in any way for our area teams. That's what we have to visit with Stan Weber. He always breaks it down in good fashion, even if the news is not good. That comes your way next on Danny and Stan's Football Weekend, presented by Park University.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention, and our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
There's no need to get a case of the Mondays every week, not during football season anyway. Hey, this is Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery, and we are the place for Monday Night Football. Food and drink specials every week, and all new televisions always at 23rd Street Brewery. The hardest thing about Mondays now will be getting through the workday, although waking up on Tuesdays might be a little bit tough. But remember, watch all the Chiefs games, NFL games, every game at the 23rd Street Brewery.
I was duped, and I recommend you be next. For better or worse, the ultra-realistic impression of me sits now in my wife's office to spook her on a daily basis. So what is Doob? D-O-O-B. It's the keepsake of a lifetime, a 3D-generated, incredibly lifelike figurine. 66 cameras take an image at exactly the same moment in any pose, and state-of-the-art 3D technology transforms that into exact replicas of you, anyone you know or love, a pet, whomever is close to your heart. Create lifetime memories with a Doob. Visit their Facebook page at Doob 3D Kansas City, or better yet, see their incredible creations. Visit their location down on the plaza in the heart of it at 231 West 47th Street in KC Mo. Doob, be next. Stan, we finally have some reflection and judgment to do with the Kansas City Chiefs instead of the inevitability that they're going to win games. And so now from the Kansas City Star columnists who always do a great job like Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian, we're starting to get a sort of a different view of the Chiefs based on what others have started to do. Didn't really matter when the Chiefs would win the games anyway. We knew the things that were in place that could beat the Chiefs were plausible and identifiable. But if the Chiefs were just going to go out and score 37 or 40 points every game, it became irrelevant. This time around against the Colts, they didn't.
It finally came back to haunt them, but it's going to happen. You're going to lose games in the NFL, and the games are going to be fairly competitive. You could go back to the Detroit game, and if you were fair, you'd say the touchdown return that Breland had was just a play where Detroit quit, and he jogs in 100 yards later. Could easily be 7 points for Detroit and 0 for the Chiefs as a 14-point turnaround. So some things mask, the overall story in the NFL, but that's the same thing here. The Chiefs still could have won this game. The Colts did everything right, and still it was a toss-up game at the end. Chiefs weren't going to go undefeated. If you go 14-2 in the NFL, it's an incredible year. 13-3, I know it's the jinx number for Chiefs, but it still is a great season, and even 12-4 is acceptable to be a Super Bowl champion. You win less than 12, you probably don't deserve to be the NFL's best team at the end in the Super Bowl, at least historically. So, one case is they're still the best in the AFC West by far. The big story of the weekend really wasn't the Chiefs losing. It was the Chargers losing their game at home, and so they just fall further behind. And with the injuries they have and not performing at a high level, it doesn't look like they're a competitor. Yeah, the Raiders beat the Bears. It's impressive. They've won a couple of games, but the Chiefs already have a win over the Raiders in Oakland, and I think that the Chiefs are better than the Raiders, so I think they're going to win the division. And then the rest of the AFC is a bunch of parity, equal teams, so I think that they're going to get a bye. Yeah, they may not have the number one seed, but you can still beat New England and take care of that and get the tiebreaker. So the Chiefs are in a good position. The injuries are mounting up. If you want to start looking at a black cloud that might be real, you could say no matter what you think of the Chiefs offense or Andy Reid's coaching or the run defense, whatever aspect of the team, when you take it in totality, injuries are mounting up. So that could be something that's a factor. But as you said, everyone's really doing a nice job of analyzing the Chiefs game after the Colts game, but they could have just listened to our podcast 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago and during the summer or the early fall when we started. You know, it starts with, is Steve Spagnuolo going to turn this defense around? Is Frank Clark going to be the difference? Is a changeover of the Chiefs scheme going to really shut down opponents? And the answer, I believed, was fairly simple. Unlikely. A chance to hit the reset button. The players like when they can blame something. I mean, Bob Sutton is the worst human being in the world to all Chiefs fans, and to the Chiefs players, they love saying, oh, we're so glad we got rid of that guy. I mean, he had complicated defenses. I mean, in the NFL, he had a complicated defense. It kept us from playing well. You know, so they turned over some players like Justin Houston. So to me, it was 6-1, half dozen the other. I don't care if they're in a 3-4 or 4-3. I don't think the linebackers are dominant enough to be a giant factor. And so I thought the Chiefs would run into the same problems that they've run into the past. I was surprised. I would be surprised if the defense picked it up. They're not sitting there now. They're doing things. They're taking chances. There's a good play here or there. So you can still be encouraged by some of these things, but stopping the run is an important part of the Chiefs' weakness. And it is a double best strategy for the opponent. That's the thing. Is you can look at the Chiefs' defense and say they can't stop the run, and then there's all kinds of discussions. It doesn't matter if you stop the run or not because the running game doesn't matter in the analytics of the NFL. It's all about the passing game. But the best strategy against Patrick Mahomes is do anything to keep him off the field. What did the Colts do? By running the ball a lot, 60+% of the time, 45 rushes, they held the game down to 9 possessions each. That meant Patrick Mahomes only had 9 possessions to score points. The best defense is to keep him on the sideline. So running the football is a good strategy to do that. Keep the clock running when you have the football. That works. And, the Chiefs' defense is unable to stop you, so keep pounding it. Now, I've said all along, Danny, the thing that I thought was in the Chiefs' favor on this whole philosophy is that I didn't think the offensive coordinators would be up to sticking with the run. And I'm not sure that they will if they're not ahead. A lot of this could be masked by Patrick Mahomes scoring 10 points on his first 2 drives and putting the opponent in a bind, and guess what? They'll start throwing. But I told you what I would do probably 2 weeks ago when the Ravens threw it 43 times, and I thought they were a team that could give the Chiefs some problems. I would say, when we finish this game, I don't care what the score is, the offensive coordinator, when I walk in his office on Monday, is in big trouble if we haven't run the ball more than we passed, period. Run more than pass. Well, that's hard for NFL teams to do. Only the Seahawks last year ran the ball more than they passed. No one thinks that's normal. And then you get behind, you get in a hurry. The Colts, because they had the lead, we didn't see them tested. They were able to stick to their plan. Even their passing game, Danny, was New England-like. Short passes, high percentage passes to running backs, tight ends, and it was basically another running play. So the Colts really played it out. The question is, will this blueprint work? Will offensive coordinators and head coaches stick with this plan? I think it's too radical. I don't think they'll be able to do it except for one coaching staff, and that's Bill Belichick's. And unfortunately, that's the one I'm focused in on, but I believe they'll do whatever it takes. And I think the formula to beat the Chiefs is simply sticking with the run. When it doesn't make sense, run. The Colts did that. How many times on 2nd and 9, 2nd and 11, the Colts ran and they got 9 or 10 yards? They don't do that in the NFL, Danny. You don't run in that situation. You throw because that's the only way to come back. The Colts pounded on the Chiefs' weakness, and kept Patrick Mahomes off the field. It's
Especially
a formula
in the
that'll
second
work.
half. They had the ball for 22-plus minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, you have the ball for 7 or 8 minutes and a half. It's hard. That's probably 2 possessions.
Yeah. So it's a formula that works, but then we need to talk about the Chiefs' future. A couple of things happened in the ball game. One is Travis Kelce, I thought, had one of his worst games. He seemed to be pressing, and he dropped some balls. If he catches the balls that he normally catches, the Chiefs' offense probably is enough to go ahead and win this ball game. But the real component here is no Tyreek Hill. And last year I was on the soapbox of saying Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are awesome together, but Tyreek Hill is the other thing that makes them lethal and unstoppable. And we got away a little bit from that because during the summer I didn't think Tyreek Hill was likely going to be playing for the Chiefs, so you start reevaluating. Then we saw the Chiefs draft McCole Hardman. You say, well, okay, maybe that he'll be the speed guy. But Sammy Watkins was the difference at the beginning of the year. When Sammy Watkins came out leaner and fast and a star type of receiver, a number one receiver, that's what he was drafted to be. That's what he showed early in his career. And he has the capability. The Chiefs are paying him like he's one. When he came out in the first game and looked that good, I go, well, maybe they don't have to have Tyreek because Patrick is so good and they got a lot of weapons. But Sammy played the role of being unstoppable and fast. That gap he had at Jacksonville was nothing. I mean, when he caught the ball over the middle, in the NFL, 9 out of 10 times, you go tackle him, no big deal. 3 guys were there. But he somehow just turned it up and outran everybody, Tyreek Hill-like.
Yeah,
but
when
now
he's fresh, I mean, he's a great runner after the catch.
Yeah, but Sammy's already, hammy. That thing hangs around a long time. He's injury-prone. So let's get back to the story. Tyreek Hill's almost back. The Chiefs need him. And I think they need him, Danny, for mostly the ability to find a play when things aren't working. Right now, the offensive line's losing its confidence. They don't have their left tackle. Teams are going to attack because they can. When you believe you can get to the quarterback, it helps you tremendously. Just when you're lined up and you go, I can beat this guy, that confidence factor. So the Chiefs are going to have to deal with more pressure on Patrick. His left ankle is slowing him. He's not moving as well. But guess what? When Tyreek Hill's out there, they hand the ball to him. They throw the ball down the line. So if it's 1st and 10 and you didn't have a good possession on the previous possession and you're worried about the blitz and what are they going to do, he says, how about this? Let's just throw it down the line of scrimmage. The rush doesn't matter. Patrick will deliver the ball to Tyreek, and now he's standing over there. What will he do? He'll do something good. I mean, the other team's hoping I hope we can push him out of bounds before he gains more than 10 yards.
Right.
I mean, the dynamics are unbelievable. So I think once they get Tyreek Hill back in, Andy Reid's play calling will open up better. A guy like Byron Pringle did everything he possibly could. Who could ever expect more? If you're a K-State fan, you just got to be doing backflips and saying, wow, congratulations, 100 yards.
Right.
He did everything he could do. People want to blame him for not doing something right on a 3rd and long catch. Let me tell you, when you're Byron Pringle and you have 2 career catches and you see your quarterback near the end zone firing a ball out, you come back to the ball and you just secure the catch. Right. You don't worry about, I'm going to spin and turn and make an extra yard. Yeah, maybe he should have, and if it was a receiver who's more veteran, he might have made the 3rd and long, and the Chiefs wouldn't have had to go for 4th and 1. You remember that sequence? Right. But to blame him, just to get the ball and make sure you secure it and don't get it knocked away. So Byron Pringle played well. Hardman was not a big factor, but those guys aren't good enough. They are not Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. In the running game, Chiefs never got to it. So there's a lot of things. The Chiefs are still an unbelievably good team with an amazing weakness on defense. And I think to me, they and the Patriots in the AFC are the only 2 teams that have a real chance to be in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. There can be upsets. Someone could upset either the Chiefs or Patriots. But what the Patriots are a known commodity that has no giant weaknesses. They don't have the explosive strengths. Tom Brady, even this year, he had 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. But if you watch the game, it was not easy. There were a lot of plays that were duds where he has no chance and throws the ball away for an incompletion. The Patriots, it's not easy for them. They're not dealing on people. They have to work their way through close games. Even the Washington game, it looks like a blowout score, but if you watch the game, it was very close all day long. So they are the consistent team that has super coaching, very calm attitude in big moments for all the players, and no weaknesses. But they don't have the capabilities of going to the level the Chiefs do. The Chiefs have way more positives when things go well than the Patriots. So it's tortoise and the hare. This is going to be an amazing battle when we get to the championship game. But right now, you got to make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't get hit too much. him getting injured because he can't move is the biggest risk right now. He took some shots, and people are starting to get after him. But he told us a story, Danny. Patrick Mahomes said, hey, what did Detroit do and what did the Colts do? The exact same thing. They played us man-to-man and dared us to beat a man-to-man. And I chuckled and said, well, the Colts hardly ever play man-to-man, and they chose to in this game. So, heck of a good strategy, adjustment by them. But if Tyreek Hill were out there, they'd all be going, let's drop back into that zone. They do not want to play man-to-man against Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. So, the Patriots will. The Patriots will.
Right.
But they're the only team that knows how to sort their players out and double-team Tyreek.
And they have a true shutdown corner, too.
Yeah, and they know how to rush the passer better. The Patriots can get by with it, but the Lions and the Colts, you say, these teams are going to lock us down man-to-man. Without Tyreek Hill, they should try it. This will be a tough game this week. I mean, we look forward. The Texans are a playoff-level team. They got a very good quarterback. They got J.J. Watt. They got a little momentum in how they're playing right now. But they've seen the formula, and they have the capability to run the ball. They got receivers that can hurt you when they need to. If I were the Texans, I would not be too focused on trying to throw another big game. I mean, they got great wide receivers, right? Mm-hmm. Hopkins and Fuller are awesome, but I would not lean on the passing game. Still, the Texans should not get in a shootout. They should run and throw when they want to and maybe hit a couple of 50-yard touchdown passes in their passing game, but have the run be the emphasis. But this will be a tough game for the Chiefs because they could get after Patrick Mahomes.
And they aren't healthy yet.
Yeah. So this is going to be a big-time NFL game on Sunday and an important game for the Chiefs to win because you don't want the trend to start to occur. Even in Super Bowl teams who think they're Super Bowl teams at the beginning of the year can fade away with some bad play. I mean, there are teams that say, wow, I thought we were going to be 14-2, and suddenly they're 11-5.
I mean, look at the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They looked like a house of fire at the
2 weeks ago, everyone thought, the Cowboys were a real Super Bowl contender. And so you just got to be very careful. I don't take anything for granted. I keep talking about the Chiefs have won the division. I think they have and all that. But you got to be a little careful that you lose 2 home games in a row and stuff can start infiltrating in. So it's important, and it'll be a big game. This is big-time NFL football this Sunday.
Should be fun as well, and we've got basically no football a lot for the college teams coming up. Both Kansas and Kansas State have the week off. We'll talk a little Missouri, too, because they're the only ones with a smile on their face coming off last weekend. Talk about that next with Stan.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is Where Integrity Matters. Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
College football now with Stan Weber on Danny and Stan's Football Weekend, presented by Park University. The Missouri Tigers take care of business in a game that they're supposed to against Troy. Hold Troy, a good offensive team, down to just 10 points, but suffer potentially a couple of important injuries. We don't know about Kelly Bryant right now, but we likely do know that a potential All-American and certainly All-Conference player in Cale Garrett likely is out for the season, and he was playing at a super high level, local guy from Kearney, so that's a shame for him. So in a day when things went real well for Missouri, the caveat that you don't want in a non-conference game, a couple of dinged-up players, rears its ugly head.
Yeah, and you worry when a quarterback like Kelly Bryant gets injured. You're like, whoa, what is going on? I don't know a lot about Missouri's backup, but it looks like Kelly Bryant's knee is going to be strong enough, and it's just a scare. He's expected to practice this week, and I think he'll be okay against Ole Miss. This will be a fun SEC game because Missouri did what they needed to do on College Game Day on Saturday on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Danny, you and I spoke, and one of the things I said is Troy's offense is good, and Chip Lindsey is a story as the head coach who came from Auburn, who actually was the offensive coordinator for Kansas under Les Miles for a little bit until the Troy job came open. So they're a good offensive team. Troy's a team that's come off a couple of 10-win seasons, and Neil Brown had been their coach and went on to West Virginia. So they got some transition and turnover, but their offense was good, and we basically laid it out there. If the Missouri Tigers hold them to 10 points, it is a big-time day because it was not easy to do against Troy, and it shows that, to me, there's a level of concentration, a respect for the opponent, a get better every week mentality, and that's what Missouri has to do. The loss to Wyoming, that's what you had to learn is don't take anything for granted. Let's get better every day, and the upside for Missouri is very high. Now, it's unfortunate that Cale Garrett got hurt because here's a guy, another interception return for a touchdown. I mean, 3 weeks in a row, leading the team in tackles, and Missouri's defense really has cleaned things up and now is considered a big strength in my mind. We had question marks after the Wyoming game when they gave up 2 long rushes and a lot of rushing yards and lost that game. What's going on? But they've cleaned that up. Now that's a real strength. So we'll see how they handle him being out of the game. He's such a playmaker. But they're better than Ole Miss. They're at home. But, again, much like an NFL game, you got to have a lot of respect. Like, you better play well or Ole Miss is good enough to beat you. So it'll be fun to see the Tigers play this Saturday.
Let's talk about Kansas and Kansas State. They have time to basically lick their wounds at this point in time. Kansas probably is in a better position from the standpoint of they've decided to make a change at offensive coordinator. They didn't get obliterated by Oklahoma after a horrendous performance against TCU. That's the only way you could put that. That was a disaster. But they started off well against Oklahoma. Oklahoma kind of eased off after they scored 6 straight touchdowns and won the game. But still, by Kansas standards, grading on a scale, it wasn't a bad day. And now they've decided that the offense, they couldn't decide whether they wanted to play old LSU football or RPO football. So now they've gone with a young analytical guy and have a bye week to try and tweak that. So I guess we'll have some curiosity as to what they'll bring to the table when they get back into action.
Yeah, this is like trying to eat a meal that has every flavor in it possible. I mean, you've got to sort out. And you got it in your mouth, and you're going, no, wait, I taste. I taste this, and what is that? You know, I'm not sure what to make of all this. The game against TCU was disappointing, but TCU was fired up and had just lost to SMU. And what they did on Saturday was very impressive. Puka Williams goes off against Oklahoma again. They drive the ball basically 99 yards for a touchdown in just a few plays, running and passing. Carter Stanley throws a touchdown pass.
Beautiful touchdown.
Kansas looks better than Oklahoma in the first quarter. And the risk was, and we've spoken about this, Danny, getting ready for this game, that, boy, Oklahoma's just so much better. And Jalen Hurts wants to win the Heisman Trophy. And why wouldn't you want to put up numbers? And it's an offensive show. And visitors, I believe, had an advantage at 11 o'clock kicks. And what's the enthusiasm level in Lawrence? With late night the night before, where are we? And yet Kansas was the better team. The home team came out at 11 o'clock and was the better team for the first quarter, without a doubt. In fact, they had to drop the fourth down opportunity in Oklahoma territory to stop
and then
their
they
momentum.
dropped a pick 6 right after that.
Yeah, then they have another pick 6, so they could have had their 14th point.
Yep.
It's reasonable to think they have 14 and then place Oklahoma where you want, 7, 10. But Kansas could have had the lead for half of the second quarter. And suddenly you start building some time. It's a day their confidence could have been broken, that they put 2 bad games together. Oklahoma crushes you. No one gives you any hope. And instead, they played real football all day long. They got better. They didn't psychologically get beat up. And I think it's interesting nowadays you don't physically get beat up like you used to. And Tom Osborne's
we always talked about the carryover effect.
Yeah, Nebraska and Oklahoma used to beat you up. I mean, we saw the Colts.
And you didn't lose that game. They beat you 2 or 3 times.
Right. Not mentally as much as just physically.
Right.
You don't fire as much. And that used to be just a given. You'd always say, we play Nebraska before we play Iowa State. That means the Iowa State game's not going to be a very good one. That kind of mentality. You don't have to worry about that now. It's not that. It's 7-on-7 football. So it's all about, hey, we blew you up. We got these beautiful touchdown passes. But Oklahoma left, and I guess everyone's happy with them from a rankings perspective and everything, but they did not look that great. Kansas looked pretty good. So we leave the game feeling pretty good about where Les Miles is with this program. It was not a blown day. You don't have a snowball effect from the TCU game, so things are under control. You watch Les Miles' show, Miles to Go, on ESPN Plus, and you get inside looks, and it seemed like, man, he was really together with his assistant coaches. They were pulling in the same direction. Les has his quirky ways, but, his assistants were solid, and they're fully, let's go, Les. You're our guy. Wait a second. He just fired his offensive coordinator.
Right.
If this was David Beatty, I would be jumping up and down and saying, this is a bad, bad sign. When coaches make decisions at this point and blame people. So is Les Miles just quietly making a solid decision on a day where their offense wasn't that bad and just feels like it's time? Did Les Canning, was he not into it so much? Is he so excited about the guy that he brought in? It's Brent Dearman. And Dearman is a guy who coached, I guess, at Bethel maybe, right around here locally.
Yep.
He's an RPO specialist. He does very good with the analytics. He's helping the program tremendously from not behind the scenes. They're right there with
But he wasn't allowed to coach
staff.
players on the field.
Yeah, but he really had a lot to do with how the strategy they used against Boston College. We've talked about it here. You mentioned it even today. The LSU pound it. We got better athletes. Let's give the ball to the tailback. I think limited Kansas. They're better when they spread things out. Carter Stanley, he needs a little flair. Patty Mahomes is so awesome. You run RPOs with him because he's lethal. Carter Stanley, you run RPOs because he needs a little leeway to not be perfect. In RPOs, you say you could pass, you could run. There's a lot of decision-making.
Right.
You got to throw the ball from different angles. That actually is empowering to Carter Stanley. Because if you told him you have to do this 5-step drop and your feet have to move exactly like this and I want your left shoulder and arm tucked in and all those kind of things are not going to happen. He's not going to do everything fundamentally sound. He's better when there's a little looseness. And RPOs actually allow the quarterback to be, if you say, why did you throw the ball there and like that, underhand? And he's going, well, because the lineman was on me, coach. He's unblocked. I had to throw around him. So I think it helps Carter Stanley as well because he's a wheeler dealer. He's better like, let me make some mistakes, but I'll make some plays for you.
Right.
So maybe it's a good strategy. But like I said, I got a lot of tastes coming out in my mouth as I'm chewing on this going, wait a second. A coach that fires his offensive coordinator at this point in the season is usually not a good sign. So still wondering, where are we with where Kansas is? They got a week off, so we're not going to learn a lot more. and we'll see Kansas back in action in a little while. But a lot going on at KU, but mainly the positive thing is no disaster on Saturday. Really a positive day for the Jayhawks.
Anything but for the Kansas State Wildcats, and now a team that really started off well, and Chris Kleiman was really getting a lot of credit and kind of getting anointed of, okay, this is a seamless transition, and all the refreshing talk about how we don't have to run gassers all day anymore, and the media gets to see the team. Everything was rosy, and then just two duds. I mean, two really bad games. Now, K-State, over-under for their team was 5.5 wins this year in Vegas. I mean, they were considered a borderline bowl team. They're still 3-2, a lot of the season remaining, but they had raised their own bar is what had happened, and then they limboed right under it 2 games in a row in a totally unimpressive fashion, particularly on offense.
You talked about the standards for Kansas, and I finished it as a positive day for KU when they basically got blown out by Oklahoma. So it is compared to what your expectations are, and that is the big thing, is the expectations have moved. If you start the season out and you start chugging along and you think of K-State as a team that's a 5.5 win
yeah.
Vegas over-under, picked 9th in the Big 12 by, I believe, the coaches voting. Actually, that was a media vote.
Right.
So, they're picked 9th in the conference. So there's one aspect, and you go, is K-State at that level? And you kind of shake your head, no, I feel a lot better about them than that. But then you look and say, hey, K-State's ranked 22nd in the country. They've been ranked for 2 weeks. They went on the road and beat Mississippi State, a ranked team. Now look at where they are. Well, those are a whole different level of expectations, and they're not close together. There is a wide spectrum there. And where does K-State sit? Well, somewhere in between, but more than likely, for simplicity, you'd say somewhere in the middle. Well, if you're somewhere in the middle, now suddenly you're disappointed that you're not playing up to the level that you did against Mississippi State. So to be realistic, you got to start sorting out what is going on. The line came off the ball against Mississippi State with a level of confidence and physicality. The running game really worked, and then the passing game followed. And I do think that's the way it's going to work for K-State. I don't think you can substitute, we'll pass first and then come back and run. They're going to have success in the running game. What they did when they went to Oklahoma State is they got into a situation where they went up against, for the first time with this coaching staff, this new defense, which really is a new defense. Matt Campbell brought to Iowa State a new defense, a 3-3-5, that looks like the umbrella of 5 defensive backs back there is set to stop the wide-open passing games. But it leaves you a little bit in a position of not having enough guys up against the run, so could you be hurt? Well, Iowa State's saying, no, we got that figured out, because they got keys, and different guys of those 5 start sprinting to the line of scrimmage and actually get up there by the time the ball's there. So they believe that they're not outmanned. They just want to keep you off balance. But Oklahoma State decided to implement the same defense and played it game after game after game. Then K-State got to them, and guess what? They played it some, but they played a lot of 8-man fronts to stop K-State's run, and they were changing on each play. On first down, they may have an 8-man front, old school as it gets, and stuff K-State for a no gain, and the next play switched to the 3-3-5. And so I thought it was hard for the K-State players to get used to where the guys were, how you're going to block them, and going up against this defense. This defense is unique, and it may be a good enough defense that it becomes the defense of college football, Danny. Brent Venables, an awesome defensive coordinator, maybe the best in the country from Clemson, actually visited Iowa State, spent time with them to say, what are you guys doing?
Right.
That's a national championship coach saying, I want to learn a little bit more about what you're doing and why. And coaches usually share that information if they're not in the same conference and things like that. So K-State, I thought, didn't have success against Oklahoma State. Then they come to Baylor. Well, Baylor plays the same defense. And now K-State has some practice against it. The players on the field have experience, and I thought they would react better to it. With Baylor, I think one of the big problems K-State ran into is their defensive front wall. Those 3 guys ended up not just being guys. They're first-team All-Big 12. Their nose guard really just takes care of the center and sometimes both guards, and K-State had a couple of running plays that absolutely were going to work, and he made the tackle at the line of scrimmage. And the coaches pull their hair out because the team doesn't have confidence. They're going, we can't run the ball. But the coaches are going, like, if he would have, the nose guard should never make this tackle. I'm telling you, it shouldn't be that good, and we would have run for 15 yards.
Right.
And one 15-yard run might lead to another. We'll see if K-State, at the end of the game, third and fourth quarter, they started running the ball and looking a little more normal. Will there be carryover? a big question. But right now I think Skylar Thompson's feeling the pressure of the world on him. He played so well at the beginning of the year that his expectations of what we thought of him shot up the same as the rankings. Like, oh, God, he's throwing every ball accurately. He's audibleizing all over the place for running touchdowns. This guy's dealing out here. And then a little bit of negativity. Things don't work quite as well. He still has only thrown one interception, and it was a tip pass that ended up being intercepted. But still, without confirmation on the field that everything's going well, you cannot take that to your heart. And I think right now Skylar's got to just pull his bootstraps up and say, I believe in myself, but don't get caught up in how good everyone thought you were, or maybe you thought you were, that you're the 22nd ranked team in the country and that you're maybe on your way to being the next Carson Wentz. Hey, we're going to see another pro quarterback. You and I were talking to Chris Kleiman. We interviewed him for College Game Day, and I made the correlation. Like,
the first bye week after 3-0.
Yeah, like, well, Skylar's playing at a high level, and you've been around a couple NFL quarterbacks, so what do you think? That's probably a little unfair. I think his development's just fine, but when you lose, you start questioning yourself, and the cancer starts inside your own body. Like, am I good enough? Should I press? What do I need to do? Skylar needs to stay calm, and K-State needs to get out there. And in this conference, they're not going to let up on you. The thing is this year, where are the bad teams? Where are the bad teams? Did you see Texas Tech play? I mean, they're playing well. West Virginia, I thought, really stood up well against Texas for the first half. And Kansas fought Oklahoma well. I just don't see the teams where you usually mark up out of our conference. If we're going to play 9 conference games, 3 of them are sure wins. I mean, there's almost no way we're not going to win these 3. That's not there this year. So there's no break. K-State's next game is 2 weeks away, week and a half, against TCU, and they're Jekyll and Hyde as well. They played high level and poor football. You just don't know what you're going to get with TCU.
And to wrap things up and maybe take it full circle a little bit, we talked about for the Chiefs how Sunday is a bit of a tipping point game. You win by 10 or 14 against the Texans, a good team. You feel like all order is restored. Same kind of deal for K-State and TCU. Probably both teams, actually, but we're focusing on K-State here. You drop a third straight, TCU handles you kind of easily. Game's at home for Kansas State, so maybe toss-up game, I would figure, in the odds, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, tipping point game kind of for the Cats.
Yeah, no, it's high-risk game because the realities of real life come starting into play. If you were to lose to TCU, the 2 bye weeks have been in there since you beat Mississippi State. And you did nothing wrong on those 2 bye weeks, but they're at a weird place, not really a good place, too close together. But you beat Mississippi State, okay, but now you go bye, loss, bye, loss.
Right.
Oh, I mean,
That's 5 weeks since you won a game.
You've practiced a lot of football. You've been out there on the field a lot of days, and then the sun doesn't come out when you've lost any. That's the way it is in football. The sun doesn't. Maybe you have the discipline on Tuesday or Wednesday to act like, well, the sun may not be up, but it'll be up here in a few minutes. You got to wipe away. Don't let that last loss. But the fact is that starts wearing on you. So no, the TCU game's big because you'll have lost 2 straight home games, and again, the questions will abound. And it could be, what about Coach Kleiman and what? Well, it really isn't about Coach Kleiman, but again, there's an opening there because if it was Coach Snyder, you know what they'd say? Oh, Coach Snyder's too old. So it happens no matter what. It's not mean to say, they're going to question Chris Kleiman, because if it was Bill Snyder in the same sequence and they lost to TCU, they'd go, he's too old. He's lost it. We need to move on. I mean, they're going to get down on you, and these games are going to be close. The TCU game, more than likely, unless things don't go well, you're going to go to the fourth quarter and see who wins this game.
Right.
And both teams need it. Because TCU's expectations are not to be barely bowl eligible. They thought they were going to have a chance to win the conference, and now they got spanked against Iowa State, and they played great against Purdue. They got beat by SMU. They've had every sequence of bad and good that you can imagine, wide swings, and there's a lot at stake. TCU historically plays very well in Manhattan, and there's a specific reason why. It's Gary Patterson grew up here. His players know this is his home.
Yep.
They fire up and play kind of out of respect to him. Like, we know, Coach, you're coming back home and your relatives are K-State fans. You went to K-State. We know you want us to play well. They've played awesome in Manhattan and been very hard to beat there.
Stan, always a pleasure. We'll talk again on Saturday on College Football Game Day, a full one there, and back at it next week on Danny and Stan's Football Weekend.
We know K-State and KU will not lose, so hopefully Mizzou and the Chiefs make it a little bit better.
2-0 will make it an undefeated weekend this weekend. Thanks, Dan.
Right, both favorites.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.